We invested $10,000 in a YouTube coaching program with the hopes of having this program teach us how to grow our YouTube channel for our business. And the truth is that the program got us more views, but it ultimately hurt and killed the joy of creating content for our business. So this is a story on how we landed there and how we actually dug ourselves from that hole. So first of all, let's talk about what is this strategy that we were taught that cost $10,000, and it kind of worked, but not really.
Yeah, so the strategy is that we analyze outliers from other channels in our niche, from other channels in general. There's fancy tools one can use. One is called 1 out of 10.
Yes.
But I prefer actually using my own eye and analyzing the views and seeing just what's the average and then what is an outlier, because the 1 out of 10 tool sometimes also just is not accurate.
Yeah.
So that's the whole strategy, which again, it comes from the perspective of find what works better than the average and then do more of that, or copy that, implement that in your channel, which technically makes sense from the rationale of how do we improve, how do we get better. However, it had a massive side effect for ourselves.
Yes, and that side effect is that we would find, for example, because the strategy, which we didn't specify, is we take the titles and thumbnail combinations that work and recreate that. And by following that strategy, we found fantastic curiosity-driven titles like "Moving to Germany is hard until you understand this." So before, we need to probably give some context of who we are and what we actually did for our first online education business, which was called actually Simple Germany, where we help people move to and settle in Germany. So that's why we were looking for titles and thumbnails in that niche of relocating to Germany. And when finding titles like "Moving to Germany is hard before you understand this," it sounds very intriguing for sure. But when sitting down to script or outline these videos, we would stumble upon the big question of what is this?
Because this could be and mean a gazillion things. And being forced into this cage and diluting of, okay, but this sounds like it's the number one key thing that stands above everything. What could it be? It actually, I remember vividly that I was sitting at my desk, literally staring at a blank page in my Notion, and hours went by and I felt frustrated and I did not feel anything I came up with was worthy of that title. Felt if we use it, the promise that title and thumbnail are creating, that we would fulfill it. Nothing felt big enough to be the one thing that you need to understand before moving to Germany.
Yeah, and that's when you called me in and we sat together and we said, okay, maybe it's discomfort, it's something new, let's get over this. And we came up with the plan and we actually ended up recording this video. And even though we felt a little bit not convinced, we still did it. We launched it and actually it did get relatively good views. However, this kept on repeating over and over again, where we would have titles and then we would sit down and we would spend hours trying to figure out what this was. We got into discussions and it just slowly started killing our joy for creating content. And instead of it becoming, before when we would batch script our videos, it would be like, yes, it's time to record and create videos. It would be like, oh, we have to do this again. So from joy, we went to chore. And the super interesting thing is that this energy that we carried while writing the scripts and then while recording the scripts, it obviously carried over and our audience could feel it. Because we also got some comments of like, wow, your style changed, or what's going on here, in a way. Because we had been creating content at this point for 6 years where we actually did not use this strategy.
No, we just tapped more on our natural energy. We tapped more into the problems that we knew were there for our audience, for our ideal client, and just created content around that. So it just changed the approach. And going to it, the problem that with the strategy is it worked in a way of it got more views. That particular video was average, but other videos that we used the same approach with finding outliers really outperformed in terms of views. But
what is the but?
But not all views are created equal, because not all views lead to leads for the business, right?
Right. And not only that, but going back to the big idea of this video is that we no longer felt that joy of creating the content. And I don't know if this is very naive of me to think, but I created an online business, or we created an online business where we want to feel joyful and every day waking up to this idea, wow, I get to serve my audience, I get to do these things for them, I get to help solve the problem. In this case was to help people relocate to Germany. And when that joy gets like sucked out of your soul, it leaves us, it left me at least in a position where like, then why the hell am I doing this? It's all about like, I gotta get that title and thumbnail right, I gotta get those leads. And it no longer comes from a place of inspiration and creativity, where I think it's kind of like the higher calling, so to speak, of why we even started a business to begin with. Again, I don't know if I'm romanticizing this idea, or maybe, I don't know if it's a unique or naive perspective. I wouldn't consider ourselves to be this hardcore business, all driven people. We do believe that an online business fuels our energy and our joy, and following the strategy cut that completely.
So what did we do to change that? How did we, because we realized we cannot continue like this. This is definitely not sustainable. So what we changed was recognizing that there's truth to the strategy. We got more views. Not all were the same quality, but that's a topic for another day. But we changed the approach that we use the strategy for. What did we do?
Yeah, so we call this, actually it's a rule. We created a playbook for YouTube for Business playbook, which if you want, you can also download in the link in the description below. That's a lead magnet, by the way. And what we did is we learned the YouTube game, which is essentially follow the outliers, but we did it in reverse. We flipped the whole thing upside down. So what we do now, we're trying to find the balance, because we're still trying to find this balance of having inspiration first, creativity first, the idea that comes first to us, and a moment of inspiration of how we think we can help best our audience, and then looking at what packaging has been successful on YouTube to try to emulate, I wouldn't say blindly copy, but emulate titles that bring more intrigue and more curiosity to the topic that we have chosen to begin with. So now we do packaging last, right?
Right, yeah, that's the whole thing. Play the YouTube game, but put it in reverse.
Yeah. So another lesson that we learned is that, fantastic, as you mentioned, we got way more views, but that didn't necessarily mean that we got more leads. Because to get leads from YouTube for our business, we learned that we needed to do something different. And that was to create a whole system, let's call it like a invisible backend working in our YouTube channel to actually capture leads for our business and then hopefully convert those leads into customers. And if you want to learn the system that we developed for our YouTube channel, then make sure to check out this video here, which I'm just going to be on your face, I think, because we're two people, where we talk about how we got from 10 leads per day to 100 leads per day by only using YouTube as our medium of capturing leads for our business. Hope to see you there.